Good morning, this is Val from Mainway Solutions. Working on a Articat front end. Those greasable bushing kits that I make, they all come with this bronze bushing that's got marked with an arrow and new stainless axle. So the front and the rear are two different sizes. This is towards the front. The one on the back is just a little bit smaller, but principle is the same. So I developed a driver tool. Guys were having problems knocking the bushings out, and then they would burr the ID of the ID of the arm when they were knocking the bushings out with a sharp punch, and they're burring it, and then they were having to clean it, and then when they put the bushings in, it actually was pinching the bushing. So I come up with this tool, and it seems to work pretty good. So let's go through the steps here, and we'll see if we can get one installed. So here's the tool. There's two different drivers. Like I said, the bushings are different. This is the driver for the front pivot point bushing, and that's for the rear. It's a little bit smaller. You have to be careful that you don't use the small driver in the big bore, because it'll actually go in there and get jammed in there, so you have to be careful. So we're going to select the longer one, or the little bit bigger one, and we'll actually put it inside. So this is how it fits. Fits in there just like that. So let's assemble this. So this shredded rod has one nut on it that's been Loctited on there. So that's the one that you're going to grip and hold, because when you're turning this through, you won't be able to see the nut because it's going to be drawing the bushing in through the arm. So that's why I've Loctited this nut on there, something to grab a hold of, and then we'll turn this to pull the bushing out. So let's go ahead and we'll get this thing out. Here's the driver tube. So we'll put driver tube on there. Back this off so we got lots of thread. And we don't need that washer. This is going to go on there like that. So full thread, pull the rest out the other end. So basically, this is what we're going to end up with, right? So I'm going to put this actually in the vise. Maybe we can get a better look at it. Always use some protection on your arm. We'll have a look, see if that makes it a little easier. Yes, we'll focus on that a bit, and we're going to draw that out. So like I said, we're going to hold the top bolt, or top nut, and we're going to turn the bottom one. And this is going to pull the bushings out very easily. So I just felt a little bit there. It started to pull through. I'm not 100% on the mark here, so just going to move this a bit. So we're centered on that tube. We'll tighten that back up and we'll carry on. There she goes. So it's a little bit easier doing it on the vise, of course, because you don't have to deal with that boot and your drag links or tie rod ends from your steering. So pulling this or using this puller on the sled is going to be a little bit harder, but still going to be easier than trying to punch them out by hand. So there we go. We've actually pulled out both bushings, and we're ready to install the new ones. So what we'll do is just wipe the ID of the arm here. The old trusty grease here. I use this red and tacky for assembly, it's great. So all these bushings that I'll send you have an arrow on them with 2 X's. They go from the outside in. They go towards the middle. The reason being, the bushing is machined with the taper on the OD and it's straight on the ID. If you flip these around and get them mixed up, you're going to end up sanding and playing around trying to get your axles to fit, because they won't fit properly. So they have to go in from the bottom up. Same with this, it would go from the top down, but always towards the middle. Towards the middle. So we're just going to get that started in there like that, get it to the edge, and we'll pull our driver apart. We'll run our nuts down. There we go. Put a washer on here, get our nut on here. Always try to keep the rod in the middle of the bore, so if your washers are centered with the arm, then you know you're always going to be fairly straight. Alright, snug her up. So now we can hold that nut and turn this one. Always keep an eye on this thing, make sure it's going in there straight, but that's looking pretty good. And I can just run this up. And when you tighten these up, like, I mean, there should be some restriction there. If you use the grease and lubricate the bushing, it's going to go in much easier. And then we'll just bottom. So it's starting to get tight now because it is on a taper. Oh, I got my 14 mil, that's what. So just till you bottom it out, that's it. Pull your assembly apart. So you should be flushed out. I always give it just a quick wipe. Try your bushing or your axle in from both sides. Make sure it goes in there okay. And in the instructions, I say to hit the axle. This is what I'm talking about. So like I said, the axle is not 100% round because of the way that they weld it. They weld it all the way around on this side, but it's not welded here, so the taper is from the outside in. So just to seat these things, right, you would stick this axle in, and with a leather hammer, block of wood or whatever, just basically you're hitting the side, but you're hitting the axle, right? You're not doing any damage. Don't hit it with a steel hammer, but you know, something like wood or leather, and it'll just seat itself nicely, and this is what we're trying to get. This is what we're trying to achieve here, and it's a great fit. You put your greasable bolt back in there, and you're gonna have a long-lasting front end and squeak-free. The upper control arm bushings are a little bit easier. Basically, what you're doing is replacing the axle alone. There is no bronze bushing, but with the greasable bolt, and it's a pretty good fit. So just remember the bushings. Each bushing has its own driver. So this is for the front pivot points. This is for the rear pivot point. As you can see, it's almost the same OD as ID. If you put the wrong one in, you'll actually drive this thing right inside, and you're just gonna make not a mess, but you're gonna get really frustrated. So just be careful that it fits properly like this. So try with this. If that goes in, great, use it. If not, then you have to use the other one. And yeah, so if there's any questions or you have any suggestions, please get a hold of me at Val at Mainway Solutions, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Anyways, thanks for watching.